Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here every week to break down all the things happening in pop culture. And today I have a pop culture expert joining me. She's an actress, comedian, and she's the host of the podcast Drama Darling, available everywhere now. And she just happens to do spot-on impressions of our beloved housewives. So I'm so excited to chat with her today. Please welcome to the podcast, Amy Phillips.
Hey, Chris. I'm so happy to be on The Gist.
Yes.
I love the name.
You have been making me laugh for years.
Aw, thank you.
And I know, obviously, like you have been in the Bravo circle. You were on Radio Andy. You definitely are in our Housewives Bravo universe. For listeners, tell us a little bit about how you first came to Bravo so that we can start there, and then we're going to deep dive.
Brass tacks, building the foundation up. I was just a comedian, just a gal about town in Los Angeles, moved to the big city. By way of born in Michigan. I went to acting school in New York City, spent some time in Chicago doing improv, and then came to Los Angeles and was just really just doing a lot of what I do, like sketch, improv, comedy, impersonations, putting videos together, putting them up on YouTube. This was back, when YouTube was sort of at the very, beginning, I would say. And I was doing Rachel Zoe impressions, and that kind of went, as the kids say, viral. Actually, probably the adults, the grandparents probably say it now more than the kids. I don't know what the kids are saying, but so that one sort of got some legs to it, and it was just basically Rachel Zoe grocery shopping.
Yeah,
and just
for bananas.
These bananas.
I know
bananas. Okay, And then Watch What Happens Live saw the video and they wanted to put it on their show and asked me. And I was like, yeah. So then after that, I ended up watching the Real Housewives of New York because Rachel Zoe was like my gateway drug into Bravo because I wasn't really watching. Like I didn't start with Orange County Housewives with everybody else. I was not that in at the beginning. I love New York. I love like the fashion. I love the idea of Rachel Zoe's, reality show. I just thought it was something we had never seen before. And I thought she was such a character. And being an actor and a comedian, it's like, once I started watching more Bravo and I was like, these characters are just some that you can't write and you have never seen them before. And they're just over the top. And, with Ramona Singer being like Pinot Grigio. Oh my gosh, just blew me away. And so I just started doing impressions of all the housewives and continuing on the radar of Watch What Happens Live. And they kept giving me opportunities to showcase my stuff on their show. And then I just was like, I'm just going to keep going until I can't stop with these impressions. And I wanted to do a podcast. And I asked Andy, you've given me so many opportunities and just want to get Daddy Andy's blessing about my podcast. And he was like, well, why don't you do it on Radio Andy? Which I had no idea he was doing a Sirius XM channel himself. So that's when that whole chapter began, probably, I'm trying to think of what year that had to have been. Well, yeah, it was probably around 2015. So I was doing a show on Radio Andy once a week, and then it went to twice a week, and then it was every day. And then I was at Radio Andy for got almost 8 years. And I just recently left to launch my own podcast. So that takes us to where we are now. And in the middle of all that, I've made my living doing a lot of voiceover work, commercial voiceover work, acting gigs, you name it, anything to keep, food on the table, wigs on my head. The wigs can, really add up. The costumes can add up. So I needed to, support myself in other ways. Thank you, SAG-AFTRA. We stand. I support the strike if indeed we need to. And now I'm just excited about this new adventure with this new podcast because I own all my stuff now. I'm not under any corporation and I can do whatever I want. And so far it's been a great jump. It's a leap into, I'm new to the podcast world. I was going to do a podcast, ended up doing the radio thing, which is great. But this is all new to me. I mean, I've listened to plenty of podcasts, but it's definitely a learning curve, learning all about like how it works. And, it's definitely an upstart, if you will, because I'm just beginning and had a wonderful supportive audience that has followed me over, which has been great.
Yeah.
And
Well, and you're doing so much content. I mean, where do you even
yeah,
have the time? You're doing recaps every day. You've got
yeah,
exclusive content. You're not even just covering, our housewives, you're covering Bachelor, Bachelorette. I mean, you've got
yeah.
it all. Like, I don't know where you fit it all in.
Well, I'm trying to figure that out, I guess like, well, working from home is a big deal. You're
Hmm.
not commuting anymore. So with a commute, obviously in Los Angeles, and you live in a busy city. So,
Hmm.
Nashville's, I'm sure, exactly the same.
Yep.
If you got to go into the city, plan on anywhere between, at the earliest, if you leave at, 6 a.m., you're going to have a 40-minute commute. If you leave at 3, you're going to have an hour and a
Hmm.
half. So, for me, I'm working from home. I can get more done from home. That's for sure. I also am working insane hours right now because I need to, I love what I'm doing and I want to do what I'm doing. So I don't I don't like putting anything out that I'm not like 100% behind. Like none of it's a headache, not like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I have to watch The Bachelorette right now and but this is my job." Like, I mean, yes,
Right.
it's time consuming, but I'm also, going into other areas, which is super fun. Like I had on this meditation or this, I'm sorry, not meditation expert, a manifestation expert who's like a
Hmm.
life coach. I have a therapist on a lot lately who she's a psychotherapist and her name is Melissa Reich. And she has a lot of things to say about Bravo because she's
Hmm.
coming from like a psychotherapist standpoint, but also a Bravo fan. And she's very supportive. So her takes are like amazing.
Hmm.
So there are these different areas that I'm kind of dipping my toe into that are new and different. And I think really, the world is my oyster when it comes to like content because I'm just like, what else can we do? Like what else? And I
Hmm.
love building up the community because now I have the ability to really interact with so many of the people that have listened to my show Reality Checked for so long on Sirius XM that like I feel closer to them now than I did before because it's now a community where, you can post on the Patreon page or the Discord or, you know, um, it's just a closer community of people, I feel like. And I can have sometimes I'll have them on as guests. Like
Right.
they'll call in, but I'll leave them on for a longer period of time.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a cool community. I'm still working out the kinks because obviously when you move from one medium to another, though it seems like it's the same, a lot of it's very different.
Yeah.
And so I'm still really trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and guests and all those things. And it's definitely been a great, like, growing challenge for me personally, which I was up for, I was down for, and that's kind of like where I was in my life, which is,
Hmm.
why I made this switch. So I'm kind of loving having all this new, ways of learning and growing. So
Yeah.
long story short, darling, it's just life is not just a podcast. You know what I'm saying? It's not a podcast.
Yes, and Luann joining us too. Um, but I totally understand because I started this too. I think you mentioned the work from home. It was like starting to be more remote. It was like,
Hmm.
oh, why not do this? You could just do this from home. And
Hmm.
I've had lots of folks that have reached out about joining in like podcast networks or various production companies or entertainment houses. And I'm like, I'd rather just do it myself if I'm going to do it because then I
Yeah.
own it from the beginning. And I come from the
Right.
music industry. On the business
Oh.
side, I was a music manager and
Oh, no
I did a lot of
way.
branding. And so I know that
Oh my
world. And I'm like,
God.
if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to start from the ground and do my own thing. But it
But you
is
also
kind of
had that background, so you already have a lot of knowledge, which is huge.
yeah. But then I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do. Love pop culture. Our world of pop culture today is so Bravo centric. Like it's always
Mhm,
in the headlines
mhm,
and it became so in the headlines right as I kind of started this the beginning of the year. It was like, we've got so much going on with, our Erica Janes and our
mhm.
Jen Shaws and then Scandival breaks. And then everyone in the world is talking about Bravo. And I'm like watching the numbers of my podcast like growing on the episodes where I'm talking about that. And I'm like, oh, I've got to feed the Bravo fans. Like that's what they want. And then it's like, but I also want, to still talk about the other stuff too. So I'm still learning that too, about
Yeah.
how do you do both. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I'm curious in your thoughts, because you truly recap every day, like what
Mm-hmm.
was on. I just took a little break from doing that because I was starting to do that too, given that's what it seemed like was working on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. But I was finding less joy in watching sometimes, because I felt like I had to have my laptop open and take notes, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
missed that little part, or I need to pause because I need to like put down a thought on like what just happened. Some
Mm-hmm.
major thing, happened between Melissa and Teresa or something. And you're like, I got to write my thought down, but not miss what's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like, am I sort of now out of it? Like, is it becoming too much work for me?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out, like, do I still find the joy in this break I took over the holiday? I'm like, oh, I can just watch, and maybe I'm
Mm.
starting to like it a little bit more. Have you found yourself in
It's a
that space?
tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous amount of work because, you know, there is something to be said. Like, I don't have a photographic memory, so I won't be able to tell you exactly what somebody said in an episode over and over again throughout the episode unless I write it down. And
Yeah.
I won't be. And there's so many episodes that it's like I need to be reminded about what's going on.
Yeah.
So I do take very copious notes, and yeah, it's not about sitting and enjoying it anymore necessarily. I mean, it is a job, and
Right.
I switched that gear a long time ago, so that's
Yeah.
just how it is for me. So, but what's interesting is that, like, so I was watching The Bachelorette on Monday night, and just before I went to bed, I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to watch this now because I don't have to like recap. I didn't have anything on the books to recap it until Friday. So I'm like, I'm just going to watch it now while I like just lay here. Like, oh, this is so great. I love it. I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to watch this like a regular person without a laptop open. And I was like, this is wonderful. And then come Thursday night, I'm like, I'm going to go back in and like try to, scrub through and see what I missed. I had to watch the whole fucking thing over again because I'm like, wow, I did not remember this. And oh, he said that, like, so it just, but The Bachelorette also isn't one of my like major go-to shows that I recap. So
Right.
I'm probably a little it's not like my strong suit. Whereas
Yeah.
maybe I'd be better at watching an Orange County episode and being able to jump right in without taking notes. But yeah, it is going to steal the joy. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, I will. So, you could either watch it one time for fun and just enjoy it, and then go back and then do an outline,
Right.
and not get too serious about it, depending on how deep you go, And I think sometimes, like with me, I probably take way more notes than I should or that I need to, but I
Yeah.
just do it anyway because I'm just in the habit.
Yeah. Same. I feel like now I like write. I'm like, every scene, it's like, okay, this scene's
I
happening.
know.
And then it's like, okay, this is what they were wearing. This was the confessional look.
Oh, I don't
This
do
is a new
that.
confessional look. I get really
Oh,
like too much.
if something, stands out about a confessional look, I will write it down, or I'll make a note that like I took a picture of that look so I can go back and look while I'm recapping or something. But yeah. You can get a little more vague about your notes and just point out, write the things that really stand out. Because the big stuff you will remember, it's like, okay,
True.
so Shannon and Tamra finally made up. Okay. We all
Right.
remember that scene.
Exactly. And, and I think the other thing that's happening too is so much stuff is happening in the news. As I mentioned, it's like they're in the headlines all the time. So it's like you're talking about this show and the episodes, and then you also have to cover everything that's like also happening in the news around it. And is it going to show up on the show the same way? And it's like, it's becoming a lot. Like there's a lot to cover.
It's so much. And sometimes I just ignore what's going on. So like, for example, with Scandival and with them picking up cameras and shooting. And I'm seeing what everyone's seeing is, Tom and Tom met. And I think they had a conversation about Tom selling his, his share of the business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to fucking know that right now. Stop.
I know.
There's something to be said about like really the paparazzi, the tabloids like need to stand down when it comes to actual plot. Because as much as we love the Dumois and all this stuff for exposing secrets, that's a different story. But like when you're exposing a plot line, it's really robbing us of so much joy of even watching it. And I mean, and also I just need to focus on, I need to focus on Atlanta. I need to focus on Orange County. I need to focus on Crappie Lake coming up. I need to focus on New York. Like I can't stop with all the news about
Yeah.
every second on, you know, Vanderpump Rules when they're off season, when we need to be like taking a palate cleanser from them with these other
Yeah.
shows. That's where it gets tough for me. I'm like, so I just leave it out. When I do my news, sometimes I just deliberately, I'm like, I'm not even going to give that life because I don't feel like talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough. And like sometimes it's like something small, like you said, like the Toms met. And it's like, okay, there's a lot we
Mhm,
could dissect with that because we
mhm,
know Tom Schwartz like said that he was going to take a break and a
mhm,
permanent break from Tom. And obviously
mhm,
that's not happening, but I don't think any of us thought it would. And then
mhm.
it's like you're dissecting a couple of words that someone captured, and then it's
Right,
like
right.
becoming a whole headline. And it's like, rather just see what's going to happen when we get
Yeah.
back and like
Mhm,
let them take a little bit of a break
mhm,
so that we can, like you said, have a palate cleanser, have, you know, Shannon doing yoga in the park and not being able
mhm.
to hold her balance and laughing and, you know, laugh with Luann and Sonia in Crappie Lake and have
Yeah.
a little bit of that because it also got so dark for so long that it's like
Yeah.
we need to sort of take a breath from them. Otherwise, I worry we're going to
Mm,
get overexposed on Vanderpump
mhm.
Rules too.
Yeah, I agree. I think we probably already are, but
Yeah.
that's how it is. That's where we are.
So, is there one, now that you're fully immersed, is there
Mhm.
one sort of show that is your top?
Hmm. Well, that's a good question. What is my top show to recap? Well, anything Real Housewives. I think Orange County's really fun to do right now. I'm really
Mhm.
enjoying that because I like Taylor being on there and
Yeah.
Heather being back. Obviously, well, she's been back for a while, but I mean Tamara being back. Who she is just a hurricane Tamara, just passed and like blast and passed and like just sassed and sassed. She's just everywhere, stirring up drama wherever she can. She's such a freaking professional, that lady, I
Yeah.
swear. So that's really
Yeah.
fun watching her. And for myself, I really have been enjoying a lot of the documentaries that I've been doing in terms of recapping, like the Duggar family doc, like Duggar
Mhm.
Family Secrets and The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. And those have been really fun for me to do just because they're not things that I normally, you know, will dip into. So that's been fun.
Yeah. And has there ever, because obviously, as we have heard already, you can pull these characters out at any given time. Have you
Whether I like it
ever
or not, whether in the
what
middle of a sleep when I'm sleeping. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. Um, have you ever heard from any of them that they were unhappy or unsatisfied with your impression of them?
um, Gosh, I'm trying to think. You know, when I met Sutton at BravoCon,
Mhm.
and we had been kind of friendly, I think, just over social media, really just light friendliness.
Mhm.
But when I met her in the Bravo, like, what did they call it? Not boutique. Was it called the boutique? I can't remember. The store, you know, where we had
Oh,
all
yeah.
this stuff. And we were all setting up because I had a booth and she was like, "Hey, hey." I was like, "Oh, hi, Sutton." She's like, "Your accent is so bad." I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "We really need to work on it." I was like, "Okay, well, look, here's the thing. I'm a comedian, okay?" I was like, "It seems to be sticking pretty good because
Yeah.
people are laughing." I'm like, "It doesn't have to be perfect." So we had a good laugh about that. So she was kind of giving me a really hard time in good fun. But yes, I'm sure my accent is terrible. But she did have a bone to pick with me about that. She's like, "We need to work on it." I'm like, "Fine." But other than that, I mean, people are usually pretty good about it. If they don't say anything, then that probably means maybe they don't like it. But you know, I try to exaggerate something that's already in, you know, there
Yeah.
and you know, just see what sticks.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you put time into it. And I think also, I think other comedians and other folks that have been in this industry understand like sometimes the exaggerated accent is actually
Mhm.
part of the character. And
Right, right.
it like It's like, it doesn't have to be so spot on, Sutton. Like, I'm doing
I
something that like
know.
people can recognize, because you do need
Right.
her to be a little more Southern than maybe she even is all the time.
Right. That's such a great point. I mean, to exaggerate them already is a tough job to begin with, let
Yeah.
alone, getting an accurate accent. So, right. I totally agree with
I
you.
mean, they're
Yeah.
such characters. I think, like I said, I remember the Rachel Zoe. It's where I was first introduced to you, and I would
Oh,
mimic
thanks.
yours because my friends, babe. We would always do the babes and the
Yes.
bananas, and we loved it. Um,
Uh,
and then like
That's great.
seeing all of your characters, like I was thinking like, oh, like what are some of the best? Because I think you do a great Bethany, and actually Sutton came to mind for me. I was like, you really like landed on
Oh,
Sutton
thank
in a
you.
way. And I also think the Meredith Marks is really good as well.
Thank you. The just.
She
I love a blazer and getting the just with Chris.
Yes, I mean, and that was one where I was like, you just came out of the gates. Like it was like a new city came and you were like, okay, I have new fresh ladies to take
I love
on.
when a fresh lady comes along. Yeah, I know.
Well,
I love
that
Salt Lake
makes
City.
me curious. What are your thoughts of the RHONY reboot that we're about to get?
I know. I'm really excited about Jenna Lyons because that's the only person who I know. So I think
Yeah,
a lot of people have that same feeling, like they
yeah,
just are excited about that. And I'm just really interested to see a whole new set of ladies. I haven't watched the screener yet. I'm like kind of waiting because I want it to be
hmm
fresh before the day before I talk about it.
right,
Um, and I'm ready to have space for them. Like I think, I don't know. I'm glad that we're getting the Real Housewives of New York. The OGs. We're getting an ultimate girls trip. I would have
right.
liked, as everybody feels more, but as of right now, if that's what it's going to be, I guess. Well, I can't. Well, what can we do? We can only think like, well, maybe it'll change in the future. Maybe the Ultimate Girls Trip will go so well that they'll expand OGs or whatever.
Right.
Um, and for New York, the reboot, I'm just interested to see what it'll be like. I have to switch gears like we all do. It's never going to
Mhm.
be. You can't compare a city coming out now than what we were given when Orange County started, Jersey, Atlanta. Like, there's just no comparison. So
Yeah.
it'll never be like that.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I think that they all,
mhm,
you talk about kind of the old days, like in the beginning, they
mhm,
all had their own identities.
mhm.
And every housewives, like OC was so different than New York, was so different than Atlanta. And
Yeah.
I watched from the beginning of OC, but I didn't actually become like, I mean, I guess I was. If I was watching them all, I was probably, I guess I was diehard, you could call it, but I wasn't like a true fanatical housewives, person until Jersey, because I was like,
Mm,
they have family and it's like it's a
mm,
totally different vibe. And
yeah.
now I think Housewives is just kind of like the same sort of format in different cities. They
Hmm.
go to parties, they, have their lunches, then they fight, then they go to dinner, and then this fight continues. And, it's
Yeah.
like the same format is sort of playing out. And I feel
Uh-huh.
like this New York is going to probably follow that a little bit
Hmm.
more.
Hmm.
Whereas like we got some of that like real New York vibe in the
Yeah.
old days of Manhattan
Mm.
Moms.
Right.
And I'm trying to be very open to it as well, because I know
Yeah.
there's tons of haters and they're going to say, where's our
Right.
Ramonas, where's our Dorindas, where's our Sonia Morgans? But I think
Hmm.
that we have to look at it with fresh eyes.
I agree. And you kind of have to take it as if it's like, when the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City started or Potomac. It's almost like you have to take it like that, because just because it's the same city, it's still a whole different cast. So you do have to look at it like these are new people that we've never seen before,
Yeah.
and they're not replacing the OGs. I mean, well, I guess they are, but they can't technically be replaced.
Yeah, exactly.
And the backdrop is, I do miss the New York City backdrop. So that in and of itself will be a huge sell. I mean, I
Hmm.
think they already have that locked down. There's
Hmm.
nothing like a New York City backdrop, and that feeling of shooting in New York City and feeling what it's like to live there, and people live and work and hang out. So I miss that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see that aspect of it in a different group of younger women. And
Mm-hmm.
that is what is going to be a whole different feel. And maybe that's what we'll end up, appreciating about it.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, who's to say that Ultimate Girls Trip doesn't go super successfully, and they don't say, let's bring, Sonia into the mix with Jenna
Yeah.
and throw her back in the show. And like,
Right,
maybe that,
right.
we'll find some hybrid where
Oh my
we bring
God.
some of these ladies back. I don't
That
know.
would be
Maybe.
so funny. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I
Right.
am sort of feeling like you are going to eventually find your footing with Bryn.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, good. Good to
Yeah. I don't
know.
know if you have you seen the taglines that came out this week?
No, I have not.
Okay, hers is. I feel like maybe she's going to be the new Sonia.
Do you know it by
Um,
heart?
I have it here. I
I want to
like to
hear it.
laugh. I like to laugh, but make me mad, and I'll date your dad.
Okay, yeah. I did hear her saying something on a promo like, "Oh, I will come and date your dad." Yeah, I did hear
Yeah,
that. That's so funny.
and she's
Make me
got this
mad.
like voice that's very recognizable. Out of all the other women, like I couldn't tell you theirs. I know
Okay.
Jenna's. I know Jenna's something about like my lashes are fake, but like I'm super
Mhm.
real or something like that.
Okay.
But I felt like I was like Bryn. I was like, oh, I bet Amy's gonna have a Bryn someday.
Good tip. I'm happy that you told me that. I'll be looking. I'll be looking.
She had the like most recognizable voice, and I'm like, she is. I think she's gonna be our Sonia. I think I
Oh,
can see her being
wow.
kind of this
Oh
like
my gosh.
feisty, sexy, girl.
Yep. Mhm.
Um, Speaking of Sonia, have you seen Crappy Lake?
I haven't yet.
You haven't seen it yet.
I'm
Well, you
gonna
have to
watch
see
it
it.
tonight. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah. Are you going to be recapping it?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I can't wait for it. I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. So I'm so excited.
It's
I'm
so.
excited to be entertained. Have you watched it?
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
watched the first few. It's it's so entertaining. I know, Andy keeps saying it and he keeps being like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is the funniest thing." And I think people think that he's like an EP on the show and that
Uh-huh.
he's sort of just promoting it, but he is actually not tied to it.
No,
He's like,
right.
this is truly like just
Just
one of the funniest
amazing.
things that has
Yeah.
been. And it's the simple life. And,
Mhm.
but even just the fact of when they arrive, and I'm not going to tell you because I want you to experience it, but like
Okay.
Luann's reaction to when they arrive and they're like landing,
Oh
I
gosh.
feel like they just sort of skate by this comment that she makes, but I was laughing out loud like, wow, these women are so out of reality, but
Out of their
it's
normal.
amazing.
Yeah. And it's funny because when they're in reality, they're still out of reality. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I mean, it's just
Oh,
so that's what makes them such great characters. What a
yeah.
duo. I'm excited.
Yeah, I was nervous a little for OC. I had a couple of folks on, Brian Moylan, I'm sure you know, and
Yeah.
he was like, they've got nothing on OC, and I was like, I felt that a little bit in the beginning, but I feel like
Mhm.
it's getting its footing, and
Mhm.
I'm also like, I like that it's not so drama heavy and dark
Yeah.
because we
Yes.
need something lighter on
We need
Bravo
like
right
just
now.
cut fitness is closing, and
Yeah.
and Taylor being like, IMDb is
Oh,
just like her and oh my God, it's so funny. And Heather
the,
being upset. It is. It's the cattiness of the catty and shallowness and like the one dimensionality of it all it's a nice change.
and I think miss it. Like,
Mhm.
the IMDb, or no one could say it, IBDM.
Yeah.
Everyone had their own version. Uh, that fight was just so old school Orange County. And it was
Oh
like,
God.
oh, I am so glad I
Yeah,
can
it was
take a
great.
relief, like a
Yeah.
breath of relief that we've got our ladies back.
They're intact. They're
Yeah.
intact. I'm so bummed that Emily couldn't go to that ranch. I would have loved to have seen her there.
Are you a Emily? I know there's like a lot of feelings about Gina and Emily and whether or not they should
Yeah.
be housewives still.
Well, I'm okay with them. I really like them. I certainly did not want to see Gina leave anytime soon because I wanted to see her come out of, and really have success in her life,
Yeah.
both, personally and professionally. And I feel like she gave a lot to that show in terms
Mhm.
of by living her life the way that she did, because I mean, what she went through was extremely intense,
Yeah.
pretty horrific
Yep.
to go through domestic violence
Mm-hmm.
and have that be, headlines, and then have to go on a TV show, kind of talk about it, and to be able to co-parent with that person and successfully now, and for her to do her victim impact statement and, everything that she's gone through. I am really proud of her. I think she's a great example for women and, using your voice and I like that she's a good example.
Mm-hmm.
I think, time will tell when her number's up, but I mean, she's such a character
Mm-hmm.
that, I don't want her to necessarily go anywhere because I think that right now she is having some real feelings about what's happening with Jen and her,
Mm-hmm.
affair and all this stuff. And with Gina, she really hasn't dealt with it. I mean, she got with Travis like very quickly. So, I
Right
mean,
away. Yeah.
she has like a lot, like as Heather said, you've got a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But like she definitely needs to, do the work because
Yeah.
it's very as most housewives do and most people, including myself. But I like Gina. I think right now she should stay. In the future, I mean, time will tell. I like Emily. I think that she's great on the show. I think she's a good like foundational character.
Mm-hmm.
She's not as kooky as Gina, where she's like, I can't believe everybody was wrong. Like it's like she's a cartoon, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But Emily is very grounding,
Yeah.
and she can take a hit in the sense that like an emotional hit in the sense that Tamara can be like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, and she's like, geez, you know what I mean? Like she's not gonna be like, I can't believe you said I'm gonna kill you. Those words are, you know what I mean? She can
Mm-hmm.
kind of roll with the punches a little bit, and I like that about Emily. So far I'm okay with what's going on with the cast in Orange County.
Yeah, I think this cast is gelling really well. I think my take on Emily is I didn't miss her in Montana. Like I forgot about her until we
Right.
got her
That's always
scene, and I was like, "Oh, there's Emily." I
yeah.
was like, I forgot that she wasn't even there.
That's never
Like,
a good sign. That's never a
I,
good sign. But a good sign to the cast that you weren't missing somebody to make it work. So I
mhm.
will say that, and the reason why I missed Emily there is I'm like, oh, she could have like kind of stirred stuff. She could have made more of it.
Yeah,
And I think that's the only reason why I would have missed her. But I also would love to have seen her on a horse because apparently she's the shit.
yeah. Apparently, yeah, yeah. That could have been some comedy. Yeah, I think that I hear a lot about them specifically in this last few years because I feel like Bravo has really given some cast members like not much of a fair shake.
Mhm.
You have these like housewives that come and they're one and done, and it
Mhm.
was like, well, did they have something, and was it just like circumstances of storyline, or was it because I mean,
Right.
love her or hate her, I mean, Noella was like a wild
Mhm.
wildebeest on that show and like had so much drama, and
Mhm.
whether it was fake or not, did she kind of provide a lot of the storyline or a lot of the central drama?
Oh yeah.
Probably, but
Yeah, I
she
think
didn't
she
get
should have
another.
come back. I always
Yeah,
think that Housewives should get 2 seasons,
yeah, I
unless
think it
there's
takes time.
such a real dud. But
Yeah.
usually that doesn't happen. I think 2 seasons is a good way to kind of get an understanding. Like Noella, she just shot her wad in the first
Yeah,
season. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I would have liked to have seen what she would have done differently the second.
yeah. That's what I feel like we didn't get to see her,
Mhm.
but then you've got, Gina and Emily who have been there in staples for so long, and I think
Mhm.
there's other, I'm kind of in the same boat with like some of the Atlanta cast right now, is I'm not sure if we have found it,
Mhm.
but like there's Sonia who I personally I'm not invested.
You
I
like bop bop
can't
bop? You like bop bop bop?
I don't know what's going on with her family drama. I'm like,
Mhm.
am I interested in anything that she has going on and these like the charity events and the stuff? It just
Mhm.
all feels like it's for the cameras and all
Yeah, oh,
for
I
the
feel the
show.
same way. Yeah, I feel like hers is a very premeditated and, she knows what to do. She's had like shows before and she knows. So the best thing about Sanya is that when she is not in that like putting herself in that box, that bop 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 box
Mhm. Yeah.
where she's trying to like make it work perfectly for reality show, when she responds to people, that's where she shines because she
Yeah.
can be authentic. But she can only do that when she's in response to somebody. So
Yeah.
like when when Kenya told Sonia on the phone, like, you can leave this trip. And she's like, really? Like, really? Like, you really want me? Like, really? You're going to fine. All right. Like those little tiny moments. I love her because it is very authentic, and it's very few and far between that we see her like that. But that's what I would need more of from her.
Yeah.
I like Drew though. Drew is my gal. And I'll drop it with Drew any day of the week. I feel like she's great as a housewife because it's just like, I don't know where we're coming or going. Like, I don't know what's going on. There's just a lot there.
Did you love her first season though? Were you instantly Drew?
I was because I just thought the drop it with Drew was so funny. And I was like, you're already trying to sell stuff. Like, this is hysterical.
Yeah.
So I did because I was more, I mean, I don't want to say laughing at her, but it was more like, maybe it was more about laughing at her, but it was like, there's something here that is quirky that I like.
Yeah. No, I definitely find her to be one of the sort of staples holding this season together. Because even like Kenya, who's, one of our all-time greatest housewives, is just sort of standing off in the corner of fights. Yes, there was she asked everyone to go. But she doesn't get in the mix like, Kenya on Apprentice. Where's that girl? Where's the one that's like there to stir things up and make a statement? And I feel like she's really taking a back seat. And I think a lot of our OGs or a lot of our like matriarchs of that show are kind of starting to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it gives an opportunity for a Drew to really become the standout.
But the new girls don't understand what kind of power they have. So like when Marlo went to Kenya's room on the same trip that I'm talking about, when she went to her room and they're kicking the door and they're doing all this stuff, I'm like, she's in bed. She's clocked out. This is where the new gals need to take it and run with it. Like Marlo, you don't need to be taking up with Kenya right now. You need to be fighting with Drew. You need to be fighting with Sonia. You need to be provoking them, not Kenya. She's gone. Candy is not there. Like, you guys need to figure this out, and it's yours to lose. And quite frankly, they are losing it because they're not taking the initiative that they need to with the right people. They're looking towards the OGs way too much. They're looking, if I start drama, like, who's the other new gal that Courtney, is it Courtney?
The cousin.
Yeah, the cousin. Yeah. So, like, she's starting drama with Candy. Well, she managed to get Candy to a place where, it's great. We love
needed Candy to get there.
Yeah, we needed her to get there. It's very entertaining, but like, you can do that with somebody else as also, maybe Sheree, because Sheree wants to stay on the show too. So, maybe try somewhere else. Like, don't just go to Candy and Kenya, and that's where they're all going. And that's the worst mistake they can make.
Yeah. And in this last week, we got the OG dinner. I don't know if you've seen the episode yet. But Kim and Lisa and what was her name? Deshawn?
Yeah.
From the first season, they had dinner. And there was just kind of an energy that I felt watching it that I was like, ooh, do we need like a legacy, or do we just need some of these women potentially back? Because there's an energy that I feel like, as you mentioned, like some of these other ladies are not bringing it. And like a Marlo could go head to head with any of those four women.
Yeah.
And why does she keep going after Kenya? It's like, we're over that.
I know.
Yeah.
These ladies.
I know. And if you haven't seen, I'm just going to say, I don't know what happened with Sheree's look. She debuted a new confessional in the purple. I'm not sure. I was like, did she have a nose job? I'm like trying, because Sheree's pretty open about work that she's had done.
There's been some whisper. I don't know. Has she spoken out about that yet? Because a lot of people are wondering.
I am wondering. I have not seen anything
we're all
confirmed.
Wondering.
Because she's so beautiful, and I think she was looking so good. It was like, and then they kept flashing to this confessional look, and I was like,
what is
this
happening?
isn't the same woman. Yeah, it's not the same woman. Well, I want to get just some of your takes. I know that you've talked about it on your podcast, but want to just get your take on the Kyle and the Mauricio Morgan Wade of it all.
Oh gosh. Okay. I gotta just be honest. Well, I want Kyle to be happy. That's the most important thing. She deserves it. I don't necessarily believe that Mauricio's been the greatest husband. So I'm more of like Team Kyle. So
Yeah.
whatever's happening in her world, she should do it. And uh, I wonder if they're going to stay together amicably and just kind of work it out. I could see that too. I mean, I really don't know where it goes from here. And with Morgan, I mean, there's just got to be something to it. Like, I mean, the matching tattoos and the rings that look like they're matching, but I don't know. It looks like they have something going,
Yeah.
And I understand that you don't need to be like lovers in order to get matching tattoos. Yeah, we all know that.
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's speculative, but I'm speculating too.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of questions, and I just want Kyle to be happy. And if she ends up in a relationship with this Morgan, like who's a country singer, I'll be elated for her because she deserves to be happy. And,
Sure.
go Kyle.
I mean, it would be a little jarring given Kyle's reaction to the Denise Brandy storyline.
Mm.
I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Kyle definitely didn't defend Denise in those moments. And if
Mm-hmm.
anything, it felt a little on the attack of
Just be
Denise
honest.
clearly
Yeah.
not wanting to talk about something. And so it will be interesting to see how the tables potentially turn on Kyle in this upcoming season. And I've heard, I don't know if you heard Andy had a caller that had asked, are you picking up the cameras to cover this Kyle and Mauricio split? And he took a really long pause and he had a hard time answering the question of like, well, I really don't know what to say and then he ultimately, through stumbling through it, he just kind of was like, I will say that you will see these things on the show play out. And so it sounds as though maybe they already had captured a lot of that for this upcoming season, which I was glad, because my fear was that Kyle and Mauricio were going to play house all season. And
Yeah. I
then,
thought that's what I thought.
and
So,
I have heard
I don't know.
conflicting things because I've also heard that cameras potentially are coming back up
Mm-hmm.
but I think maybe to capture more of the reactions from some of the other ladies and things.
Mm.
But yeah, it might be a topic of the conversation in this upcoming season. So I hope we get it because it's a
I
reality
know.
show and we need to
Yeah.
talk about reality. And I worry
Yeah.
that sometimes we skate by some of the
Yeah,
real things
especially
that are
in
going
Beverly
on.
Hills, they have each other's back so much that they don't
Yeah.
want to expose each other. And
Yeah.
I respect that loyalty, but there's a fine line where then it's up to that person to be honest with the camera.
Yeah.
So, because they're
Yeah.
not going to hold each other's feet to the fire.
Yeah. There's no Rinna to shift
Own
blame to someone else.
it. Yeah, there's no Rinna. And I don't know if Rinna would have done it either,
No.
because she's kind of like done with that. After Munchausen, she's sort of like, someone else do that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I felt like Rinna's job last season was to deflect from Erica's drinking and
Yes,
some of the things
right.
Erica had said. So she created this Kathy Hilton
Mhm,
narrative and was like trying to make a big storyline.
mhm.
And she's not there to do that for Kyle this year. And
No.
so I am interested in this upcoming Beverly Hills. I feel like there is potential if we cover real things that we're going to get a good
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
But I am kind of feeling like, this happened, the same thing happened with Drew as they, wrapped filming on this season of Atlanta. Her and Ralph file for divorce and they have to pick cameras back up. Obviously,
I know.
Scandival happened. And it's like, wow, we're starting to get into a place. I feel for the producers of these shows, because I
Mhm.
feel like because of the news, as you were talking about with the paparazzi and all of the leaks and all of the stuff, it's like they're forced to say, oh, shit, we've got to pick up cameras again to tell this story because no one's going to want to watch if
Mhm.
we don't. And I
Right,
think that's a
right. They're
tough
changing a
place to be.
production schedule. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the Jen Shaw of it all. I think we
Mhm.
learned, like, Salt Lake felt really flat because all season she was claiming innocence. And we
Yeah.
all already knew that wasn't going to be
Oh
the case.
god, that was really painful to watch. Don't
Yeah.
make me go back there.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to a Salt Lake City
Oh yeah.
comeback?
No, I
Okay.
am. Yeah, I love those ladies. So I'm all in on Salt Lake. I'm a fan. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope they find their footing this year
Mhm.
and we can move beyond the black eye
Yeah.
and we
Oh
can move
god.
beyond the bad weather storyline and all of the things, because I think we've we've exhausted all we can
Yeah.
from what they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. I think they'll find it. I hope so.
Yeah. But I need more Lisa Barlow on
Oh
my
God.
screen. I love her. And then we talked a little bit about the Scandival stuff, obviously, and that the filming is going, but without sort of thinking about what might be leaking out in the world. What's your just sort of take on a Scandival? How do we move forward with this cast?
So how do we move forward with this cast? That is such a funny question. Well, I'm not surprised at all that Tom is back. Nobody is,
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, he's thirsty. He's going to want fame and he's a narcissist. So, he's going to get his camera time. To me, it looks like they've kind of, at least some of them have forgiven Schwartz and they're going to be able to shoot with him. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they're going to have just trying to navigate. It's going to be interesting to see them navigate between shooting with Sandoval and, and that side of things. And then the rest of the cast, because he's going to be very separate. And the only person that's going to be the person in between is going to be Schwartz. So he's going to be really the one that threads, the story. And they need that, obviously. So I think Sandoval's not going to be maybe as heavy in the season as perhaps he would be if he could shoot with everybody, but I don't think he's going to be able to shoot with everybody because certainly Katie's not, and obviously Ariana's not. I don't think Lala will, and I highly doubt James will. But I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
anything's
Jax
possible.
will be back, and I think Jax will film with anyone.
Yeah, and Sandoval would film with him too, because they're both so thirsty for it. So and I just think that Raquel needs to be not on reality television, and I think she should be off and taking care of herself.
Yeah, I hope that's what she chooses too, because I think this has clearly not been the outcome of all of her grabs at the attention on the show.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll definitely be interested, and we'll be watching. Well, before we wrap up, just let folks know where they can find you and where they can subscribe. I know Patreon, and you've got the podcast as well. So give everyone kind of the scoop.
Well, you can listen to Drama Darling for free wherever you listen to your podcast, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And of course, for more Drama Darling and all the other recaps that I do that aren't on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can go to patreon.com/Drama Darling and subscribe there. We do I have all kinds of extra content, and it's a great place to find people who are like-minded like ourselves. So come join the darlings.
Yeah, awesome. And they can follow you at Amy Phillips.
Yeah. At Meet Amy Phillips on Instagram.
Meet Amy Phillips, yes. And Instagram is the thing. We haven't done Threads yet.
I'm on Threads, same thing. I don't know what I am on Threads. I just connected the two. So I'm guessing I'm at Meet Amy Phillips. And then on TikTok, I'm Real Amy Phillips.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you so
well,
much, Chris.
follow. Yeah, it was so great to meet you. And thank you for doing this. And for all of you, don't forget to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And you can follow me at CM Vetrano on all the socials. And until next week, thanks so much for listening. Bye.